Welcome to the Well-Rounded Retirement Podcast with John and Jim from Chris Financial. In this podcast, we help you take a well-rounded approach to retirement planning so you can retire with complete certainty. If you're looking for proven and straightforward retirement advice, ranging from how to protect your assets to how to spend with confidence, this show is for you.
Hello and welcome to Well-Rounded Retirement with Jim Donewald and John Glowascz from Chris Financial. Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
Morning, Eric.
We're doing great, Eric. Good day to be alive.
Absolutely. Every day is like that. Well, most days, I'd say. It depends on if I get out of bed and I don't hear a bunch of cracking, from my knees and such. But no, it's good to be talking to you again. I know that we were talking before the podcast a bit, and we were talking about the coronavirus, all that stuff that's going on, all the different things that are happening in the world today. And one of the things that we chatted about was the fact that there are quite a few people that have lost jobs, which brings up a question. A lot of people that have lost jobs have 401ks at their current employer. They're going to be going to maybe a new employer if they don't go back to that specific job. What do people do with that 401k plan from the previous employer? I know you guys have had this question probably a million times. What do you guys say?
Well, it's a great question. Like I said, it's unfortunate people are losing their jobs right now, but we need to do something with these plans, and that's been a concern for most people. So, we have a white paper on our site that we refer to, but we're going to go through some of maybe the top questions as what we get asked. And the first one they say is, should I move it at all? Should I just leave it there? And we call these, zombie plans. When you have a plan with a previous employer that you're no longer working with, they're just sitting there. I mean, who's watching these? You can't contribute to them. Typically, they have limited investment options. So we believe we want to be in control. We want our clients to be in control. More importantly, before we do anything, though, we want to sit down and see what they're looking for. What is their goal? We kind of look at our firm as kind of like we're a GPS for retirement. You got to kind of figure out where we're going before we can start answering those questions. But we definitely believe that for most people, leaving it with your current employer just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and we think that, when people think about 401k plans or employer plans, there's a lot more to it than that. There are those out there that are unemployed at this point in time or furloughed from their particular company, but there's 403Bs, there's 457 plans, and 401k is just one of those types of plans. And it's one of the most valuable retirement assets, and deciding where it should go next is probably a decision that has plenty of nuances and pitfalls. So if you handle it the right way and you've protected your money's tax-deferred growth and you're in an optimal position for your current and future goals, if you handle it the wrong way, you've given yourself a big surprise tax bill, potential IRS penalties, and you've robbed yourself of potential future wealth. So you want to make sure that you handle it right and gain more control of these assets than just leaving it there with your old company.
Yeah. So I'm blessed, as are you both. We're all still working, right? And
yes.
So we're not facing this. However, I'm putting myself in the shoes of somebody who has lost their job because I've been there before. And I've got a lot of questions. So I'm going to fire some questions at you, and you tell me which ones we're going to answer in which order or however we're going to do that. But if I was in this situation, my first concern would be, is there a time limit? Do I have to move it someplace in a certain amount of time? Because either A, I don't know how long it's going to take me to get a job, or B, maybe I'm furloughed and I don't know if I'm going to be going back to the same employer. I don't want to cross some sort of threshold where then all of a sudden I'm getting in trouble for not doing something with it. So do I have to move it? If I'm going to a new employer, do I have to wait till I get to a new employer and maybe start a 401k there to maybe merge them? I don't even know how that would work. Or are there other options? Maybe if I've gotten furloughed or I've lost my job, maybe I decide to start my own business, and I'm not going to be able to create a 401k right off the bat for my own business or myself. And then what do? So, I mean, I know that's a lot to unpack, but those are the first things that come to my mind. Is there a time limit? I'm getting concerned now because I don't want to get in trouble with the IRS or anything else. So walk me through this.
Sure. All great questions. And You have to talk with the company's, HR department, see what their policy. Typically, you can leave them with your previous employer. You can leave them. That is an option. As far as time limits, we're going to go over that a little bit too, is depending on what option you choose to do. One of the things you mentioned is, what about moving it to my new employer? Sometimes you can. You have to ask them if they'll even take it. So that's the first part. And then my thought on that is, typically, I don't know that that's really the best plan. Here's what's happening. You've got the new plan with your new employer. If you have another plan, maybe just move it, once again, for your control to a personal IRA. I don't see the advantage of moving it into the retirement plans. Even though some of these companies are very good at what they do, they typically have a lot of limitations as to what you can invest in. It's got to be in their retirement account. And when you move it to your own personal IRA, for example, you don't have to be in just stocks and bonds. So we need to figure out, like, getting back to my first point there, is what is the purpose of this? What are you trying to do? So,
and I also will basically, Jim, call it a personalized pension plan.
Good point.
As opposed to just a 401k, because we've always in the past have told people that, or our clients, that if the company's not matching any dollar for dollar into that 401k, it's probably not a great place to put your savings unless it's just for the simple sheer fact of convenience, payroll deduction, and deferred taxes. But there's a lot better ways to do it than the 401k. And that's why we always suggest that we don't leave the assets at the company that we just left.
All right. And a lot of people right now are probably in a position where they're suffering a bit, right? I know that there's some stimulus stuff coming from the government, and that's great. But that check, I can't remember if it's $1,200 or $1,400 per person. Either way, that is not going to cover it in a month for most people. I would assume that's not going to cover their mortgage or their rent and all their groceries and all the other stuff. What about just cashing it in? What about being able to take the money and use it to pay your bills? Because, a lot of people are in that position right now.
Yeah, we don't like that. I mean, it all depends. Everybody's situation, like I say, you got to find out exactly what's going on here. But think about it this way. I had a good friend of mine with that exact same question. And what we're going to do by cashing it in is, solve today's problems maybe by paying off these bills. But the chances of you rebuilding back up this IRA or your pension plan at all is going to be very hard. So we really discourage that. Plus, if you're not 59 and a half, depending upon your situation, there's probably going to be a 10% penalty from the IRS. Your current employer is going to want to hold back money for taxes, probably 20%. So it's very hard to justify all the penalties that go with that. So once again, the idea behind this money is retirement. So hopefully we want to keep it there. We have another way to bridge, the gap of the shortfall or whatever. I mean, that's what we try to help our clients with. Is there a better way to solve that problem?
And we feel that we call that raid the piggy bank. Sorry about that. But you have the right to cash out your old employer plan and take a check. It's probably the worst move because of the financial repercussions that are serious and permanent. But if if it's one of those deals, if you've got to have it, you got to have it. And sometimes you're willing to take that risk, but it could do a lot of permanent damage to your long-term goals.
I have another question for you because we actually ran into this issue only because, let's be honest, my wife and I just were not being smart about it. We didn't know all the rules. We had helped a family member out, and so we took a loan off of our 401k. It was pretty substantial. It was around $20,000 to help a family member out who was paying us back, and it wasn't an issue there. However, we left our employment together at the same time. We were family teachers, and when we left that employment, I thought that the loan that we had on our 401k, we would be able just to continue paying on the loan. That wasn't the case. I believe I had 60 or 90 days to pay back the entire loan, or it would be counted as income, counted as money taken out of that 401k, which it was. And it to the tune of about $14,000 out of that 20 that we had actually had the loan for. So we got a big surprise with that 10% penalty. We got a big surprise with the tax implications of an extra $14,000 as income. What happens to people that maybe have loans on their 401k that have lost their job in this situation?
Yeah, well, that's another great question. And that's why you've got to be so careful with this, because there are all these little rules and regulations that we get caught up on. Roughly you have 60 days to roll the funds over. The loan situations, those vary, so I'm not going to get into the details with that. If somebody's got that, we can certainly discuss that. But realistically, you've got 60 days to roll this money over from taking possession of it. That's why for our clients, John and I try to never touch the money. We like to go trustee to trustee, move it from where it is to where it's going. The big advantage to that is you can do transfers. You can do several of those in a year. An IRA rollover, you're only allowed one a year. And if you have multiple accounts for maybe you've had several jobs in the past, once again, those things, just like you said, it can bite you when you're not looking. And that's the last thing we want to see have happen to our clients.
All right, you spoke about rolling it over into an IRA, right? Now my question is it possible to roll it over to a Roth IRA, or are we talking just a traditional IRA? Are there other rules within that are best or not good?
Well, there's moving your old plan into an IRA gives you maximum control over your money. And that's basically the ultimate goal. And like I said earlier, moving it into a personalized pension plan gives you a lot of different advantages and advanced ways to optimize your taxes, optimize deferral, and there are basically two ways to do this. And so, Jim, you want to start to review that process?
Yeah, well, so like we said, once we get control of it, you can do so much more. That's it. When you're with the company, not that these are bad plans, but you're limited by whatever the options they're going to give you. And once you take control of it yourself, if you have the ability to do so, we can start addressing some of these other issues. So you can't convert it directly to a Roth, but we can show you how to convert it over time. A lot of employers now, and I would encourage anybody on the line, anybody listening to us today, if their company has a 401k Roth, you don't need to talk to any advisor. Just start doing it. I mean, that's going to be the best thing they do, because I believe tax rates are going to go up dramatically in the future. That's a conversation for another day. But anytime we can get that money out of a tax situation to a tax-free situation, that's great, because we're in the oil corridor here outside of Houston, Texas, and a lot of these executives have a lot of money in their IRA funds, which are going to create huge RMDs at some point. And depending upon tax rates in the future, that's a big deal. So that's one of the things we address. And like I say, inside these plans, there are much more limitations. One of the things we mentioned earlier, too, is it doesn't have to go right back into stocks and bonds. Let's say that's what we have it in now, and maybe now you're older, or your situation's changed. Do you want to take more risk, less risk? And we have a plethora of options versus some of these retirement plans that we've seen where people will pick a box, the first day they have their job, and then they've never looked at it since then. And, that's just the nature of the game. So we're always looking for different options to help them out with.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing, is that I remember my first 401k, and I was working at a warehouse, a shipping company out of Seattle. And I remember all of us sitting down and somebody talking, coming to the front, talking about the 401k and so on and so forth. And basically exactly what you said. I had three options basically. And I'm like, I don't know what to choose. And the guy basically said, "You're young. You should take the most risk." Okay. So I did. That was it. I'll check this box and I went on my merry way, but I had no idea what all that meant. I just knew that this was a retirement thing, and my dad always told me, get into a retirement plan, blah, blah, blah. So I did, right? And I just didn't have the education from that. So I think there's a lot of people, like you said, there's a lot of people out there that signed up early on, and now their situation's changed, and maybe they don't want to take as much risk. Maybe they need to change some of their thought process on that. How do you help clients figure that out, especially people in this situation, figure out what to do with it now and how much risk they should be taking?
Well, first of all, just like you said, and that might have been the right way to go when you're in your 20s. So if they haven't reviewed them for a while, first thing we're going to do is just review these with the clients themselves. Most of the time, what we find is people do not realize how much risk they're taking. They just don't understand that. And as we get a little bit older and closer to retirement, we probably want to back that off quite a bit. Depends on, your personal situation. But for somebody to be, late in their career and to have all their money at risk, to me, we're too late for do-overs, is the way we say at our office. You're getting a little too old for that. We can't afford to ride this market up and down. We know that's what the market's going to do. So how do we protect ourselves from that? It's guaranteed the market's going to go up and down. Maybe the money we need to draw off in the first few years of retirement, we don't want that in the market. And that's where we try to look at other options as well and be a broad answer, lots of questions for these clients as to what their concerns are. Mm-hmm. We also feel that, once again, getting back to the retirement, the whole idea for this was for retirement. So we really don't like people raiding the piggy bank, as John said. I mean, that, if you, like you say, if you have to, you have to. I know, people's lives get in those situations, and that's all there is to it. But if there's any other solution, it's very hard to recoup that. That's all I can tell you. Having, had some financial challenges in my life, it's a long way to get back sometimes. And I'm getting older like everybody else, and it's just very hard to rebuild that nest egg time and time again. I mean, we just lost, 30-40% in the market in the last 60 days. It's come back somewhat, which is nice. And for the, younger listeners, that's fine. I think they can weather that. Now, if I was, 64 and a half and I'm ready to retire, that's going to be a little nerve wracking.
Yeah, but a lot of these people went into some different positions, like cash positions and money market positions. And, Jim, what they're going to miss is they're going to miss the bounce back completely. So whether the market's back up or not, they're missing the bounce back because they're sitting in cash.
Well, absolutely. That's, it's the knee-jerk reaction. We go from one extreme to the other. It's fear and greed, and that's what happens. We were in the market. I think you said earlier, we all knew this was coming in the back of our minds, but then it still catches us off guard. Then what happens? We take a knee-jerk reaction, and we put it all in a money market. You've just hurt yourself. You've taken it out at the low, so you've taken the biggest loss possible, and now you're going to put it in something that has no chance of recovery because you don't know what to do. And these are the this is what we try to avoid.
And these are the questions that a professional such as ourselves can answer these questions, especially when it comes to your 401k, because you're not going to get a lot of advice from your 401k or your human resources department and telling you what you should do and where you should invest it and where should I go to get out of trouble or just get out of the way. You're not going to get that advice, and that's the advice that you'd get from a professional such as ourselves.
Well, the bottom line is that you're not going to get that advice because they can't spend the time with you, right? I mean, you can go to human resources and try to sit down with them for an hour and a half and talk to them about your future. You know what I mean?
Right. If you can get through, if you can get them, if you can get the time. And then once again, it's, unfortunately, we look into these different places for information and they're just really not designed to help you. I mean, that's just the problem. They have those. They don't want to be responsible by saying, hey, here's what we recommend, and then it didn't do well. So they don't want to make it.
We always joke, Jim and I always joke about it, and I think it's pretty funny, is that these companies, they give you a 400-page prospectus on these different mutual funds. And they expect you to read it. And I'm thinking, why do you need 400 pages to tell me how this works?
Yeah, exactly. And I remember, like I said, I was 22 or 23. I wasn't reading a 400-page anything.
I don't think anybody is. They'll file it under the T.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the round filing cabinet. All right, guys. So if you had the opportunity, which you do because it's a podcast, to speak directly to these folks that are in this situation, why would they choose Chris Financial for this?
Well, hopefully we could help them develop a plan. I mean, that's the most important thing we see. If you're trying to get someplace and you have no idea how you're going to get there, it's tough. So let's start with a plan. Let's figure out what your goals are. Let's learn a little bit about you. That's really what we want to do. We want to, first of all, if they've got a plan, like I said, maybe it's not back in the market. Maybe it's not stocks and bonds. Maybe it's, we like to use annuities, life insurance, MRIs, which are minimal risk investment strategies, anything with a floor. This is great for people nearing retirement. That's really what we bring to the table.
So you might be asking, there's some questions that you could be asking yourself. And some of those questions are, if I have a 401k or stocks, where do I roll the money over? What rules apply to my 403b or 457 plan? Can I roll my 401k directly into a Roth IRA? And you touched on that earlier, Eric. I have a pre-tax and after-tax contributions. Can I roll them all over? And what kind of IRA do I need? How much am I paying in fees in my employer's plan? And will I owe taxes on this money? So these are a lot of the questions that you might be asking yourself, and you have no answers to any of them. So that's why, most importantly, our team will show you how to avoid rolling over those funds the wrong way and getting penalized by the IRS. We'll avoid accidentally violating the IRS rules. We'll avoid making your retirement funds permanently taxable. Will allow us to avoid accidentally taking custody of your retirement funds and triggering a taxable event. You'll understand the exact rules of your plan, and you can take advantage of the IRS benefit to maximize your growth. So there's a lot of things that we can do for you and that you can't get done by leaving the plan at your company.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if they do get a new job and they go to the HR department and they say, yeah, you can roll it over, I still would suggest sitting down with a professional and chatting about those options, because you don't have to roll it to a new employer, correct? I mean, you can start a new 401k with a new employer, but still roll your other one over in a different way, correct?
Absolutely. Actually, that's one of the huge advantages. I hate to say that, but when you have previous 401k plans, that's the only time that you get to really take charge of them, take control of them without the penalty. And once you're in the plans, then you have to be 59 and a half. They've got this, separation from service. There's all sorts of restrictions in there, which is fine. And that's designed, once again, to protect your retirement. But once you've had a break from a company, then you have a multitude of options.
Yeah, and the new employer does not have to take your transfer or your old account balance into their new plan. It might not allow. Believe it or not, all these 401ks are different and are basically designed specifically for that particular company in mind. So they don't even have to take that rollover.
Gotcha.
And might not allow it.
All right. Well, guys, obviously you've answered a lot of questions, but you've also sparked a lot of questions. So for all those that are still out there thinking, okay, I got to get some answers here, how do they get a hold of you so they can set aside some time just to sit down and talk?
Well, there's actually several different ways that they can reach us. The easiest way would be to go to our website. There we have a white paper that's on that website called on your 401k specifically, and you can download that from there at wellroundedretirement.com. You can go there, and there's a contact page there where you can actually go to our live calendar and pick a day and a time that we can talk and understand what it is that you're trying to do or where it's coming from, and we can give you some advice as to what to do and what we would suggest to do. So it's easy to go to. You can go to wellroundedretirement.com, and either Jim or myself, and then you can download that white paper as well.
Fantastic. I know that I speak for both of you and myself when I say to the listening audience, if you're in a situation where you have lost your job, I hope things get better for you very quickly, and there's some light at the end of the tunnel of what you're facing right now. But the nice thing is that there is a team that's on your side, ready to go to answer any other questions you have during this time and moving into your next season of life, whatever that is. Because it's important to get it right. So please reach out to the team at Chris Financial. They're fantastic, and they'll answer any questions. Guys, thank you so much. Do you have any closing thoughts for today's podcast?
I just think if you feel like you're overwhelmed right now with all the things that are going on, you don't have to decide these things by yourself, and we just want you to know that you have us to help kick some things around and give you some fresh ideas that maybe you hadn't been thinking of in the past.
Fantastic. Thanks again, guys. Appreciate your time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. And I want to thank you all for listening to the Well-Rounded Retirement Podcast with Jim Donewald and John Glowascz. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Jim and John come out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. Again, thank you so much for listening today. For everyone at Chris Financial, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Well-Rounded Retirement Podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Chris Financial. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service providers with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.